Hello and welcome to Deprecated Features in Uniface 9 Spotlight. My name is George Markford and I'd like to take you through this short presentation on features that have changed and possibly removed in Uniface 9. Deprecated simply means that these features are now no longer supported in their current fashion or have been removed from the product completely. What we'll see that most of these are actually slight changes to make the various prop code more compliant with other areas of Uniface. Now the webcast itself does not cover new features of prop code. Details of that are available in another spotlight, What's New in Uniface 9, and of course the Uniface library. Now the affected areas really fall into three categories, plus a couple of additional ones. The first one is prop code, and the majority of these changes involve updating the syntax. That is to say that the feature or function that existed still exists, but we've changed the syntax slightly. The other set are obsolete or completely replaced features that we no longer use. Now, when the compiler actually finds a reference to one of these deprecated features, you will now receive a warning in the compile listing. The next section is assignment file initialization file settings, and there's a couple of obsolete settings there. Plus, at the command line, when you run Uniface, there are now some options we've removed for settings and features that no longer exist, or should I say are no longer supported. And like I said, there's a couple of other additional areas. So first, prop code syntax. The majority of these are simply the addition of a leading $sign to the front of the Uniface function. The function still works in exactly the same manner, but you will now have to reference it with a $sign. Now, this really is to remove confusion between other Uniface functions that currently have a $sign and global or local procs. For example, if you look at the section below here, we have a piece of code where we've got a string variable pvar1, and we're saying pvar1 is equal to concat and then $1, $2, $3. Now, as it currently sits, you could be confused by looking at that. Is this actually calling the concatenation function in Uniface to add together the strings $1, $2, $3 and place a result into pvar1? Or does it actually mean call a global or local proc called concat, which is perfectly legal, and perform some values and return a string again into pvar1? Now, if you have $concat, there's no possibility of any confusion, which is now the proper syntax. Concat still works, but you again will receive that deprecated function in your compiler listing. If you're curious, by the way, as it currently stands with concat without the $sign, Uniface will treat that as a function even if a concat global proc or local entry proc currently exists. So now, with the addition of those changes, now completely removes that ambiguity. Now you can get a full listing of all these changes if you go to the Uniface library, just type in deprecated and just hit search. Now in addition to those changes, there are a few deprecated prop instructions. We have them listed here. The $outer is replaced by $entinfo. $outer gave you the name of the outer entity. $entinfo has a parameter which gives you that same information, plus more details are available on a particular entity, not necessarily just the outer one, so it's much more flexible. Perform was the old mechanism we used to call 3GL. That now has effectively been replaced by the activate statement, which essentially does the same thing, plus we have options to improve that interface. There was a pragma statement, and this was used in 3GL for alignment of, for example, structures. This is not to be confused with the pragma v6 profile that was out there to dictate how you would hold the wildcards in Uniface, but this is now unnecessary. The old Uniface run is now replaced by the Activate. So if you have a really old, maybe Uniface 5 application, run will still work, but we prefer you to use the Activate, which is much more flexible. Spawn, which you may remember was used to spawn a operating system command, is now replaced by the Activate operating system command for much more flexibility. Similar reason to replace the run statement with the new Activate. The old send message, which was an old technique used for synchronous messaging, we've now deprecated that function and recommend that you replace that by using an Activate to call a local operation instead, which achieves basically the same functionality.